You mentioned this previously that the Fed may adjust their mandate from where it is at 2% inflation. Do you see it likely that they increase it to maybe 3% or higher? Or do you think they'll get it back down to 2%, but it's going to be kind of the beach ball underwater effect where they'll get it down during a recession, but then it's going to bounce back up after that?
I think the Fed shifting their mandate for a variety of reasons doesn't make sense. 2% is not, I know some people on Twitter or whatever will say, well, 2% is random and arbitrary. And particularly, I think some left-leaning economists will say, well, we should just let that, target go up so that we can run more stimulative monetary policy over time. The Fed recognizes the challenges with running an inflation target that's meaningfully above that. Structurally, when you start to move your target, say, to 3% or to 4%, what that means is anytime you have inflation, right, it's not an inflation target. It's not like you're on 2% all the time, right? There's a range around it. During good time, during good times, it's likely elevated. During bad times, it's likely lower. And the problem is if you get to a target of 3 or 4%, the probability that you get inflation in the range of 5 or 6 or 7% goes up meaningfully. And once you get inflation into those levels, the probability that you have an extended period of elevated inflation, which becomes distortionary, like we've just seen, becomes much higher. And so you can't really raise the target because it increases the probability that you get knocked into that higher inflation environment that's self-reinforcing. And so they probably won't change the mandate. Now, what that means is, remember, we've got a dual mandate for the Fed. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll get inflation to 2% forever. They will still hold 2% as their target and tighten to try and ensure that they get down towards the 2%. But at some point, there will be a trade-off between the unemployment and the inflation. And so they may accept, as part of the dual mandate, they may accept moderately higher inflation than is desirable to that 2% mandate in order to meet the unemployment mandate, right? And so that's what they're going to be trading off. And so I think when you look at that balance of pressures, odds are that they're going to accept a bit more inflation than strictly at 2% in exchange for having better economic conditions, better unemployment conditions over the course of the next, 5 or 10 years. But that's not going to be a wholesale realignment of exactly what they're doing. And honestly, this is like normal. Like the Fed had a 2% target of inflation and they undershot it for 10 years. Like, it's not like they have no credibility if that's the case. It's a hard thing and they're trying to navigate and measure these or manage these different levers. And sometimes, it just kind of nets out in one direction or another. We're just going into a period where it will be more inflationary than it was, over the last 15 years.